from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on Ag Day, one cattle breed on the brink of extinction until farmers got help from the local butcher.
And there's some places we can't get to.
We head back into one of the hardest hit areas for spring flooding to see how harvest is going, as President Trump continues to try to appease concerns about biofuels.
So that it's going to be terrific for the small refineries. They've been hurt for a long time.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. The controversy over new biofuel rules and the backlash that has followed took center stage for a short time at the White House. President Trump speaking during a cabinet meeting saying that plans to recalculate biofuel blending requirements to offset waivers exempting refineries from the mandates is approved, done, and getting ready to sign, and that the deal is, quote, going to be terrific for the small refiners. The president's comments coming amid biofuel industry complaints over what the EPA has proposed. Among the plans, recalculating blending requirements based on past Department of Energy recommendations on the waivers, not the EPA's actual decisions on them. Those against that plan say it would undercut the annual target to use 15 billion gallons of ethanol under the U.S. Renewable Fuel Standard. President Trump asking USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue to talk about ethanol during that cabinet meeting.
You've done a couple of things. You first of all committed to and fulfill your promise of making E15 year-round. That's what's really needed to build infrastructure. That's a 50% increase in domestic usage there, which will happen. Good for the economy, good for the air, and good for the ag farmers in that way. You've also balanced up the small refinery waivers with the farmers and RFS, and once they fully understand what you've done here, they'll be fine and as they see it implemented.
EPA Director Andrew Wheeler trying to reassure biofuel groups and others they will get their full allotment of ethanol blending next year, saying, quote, if they look at it and if they read it carefully, they will see it will get us to the 15 billion gallons of ethanol that the president promised, and that's in the statute, end quote. At the same cabinet meeting, President Trump said efforts to end the trade war with China were going well, stressing the toll that U.S. tariffs have taken on the Chinese economy. He said they have started buying U.S. ag, but that he wants more. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer says the administration is still aimed at a finalized Phase 1 trade deal in time for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meetings in Chile next month. He said he and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin would speak with their Chinese counterparts on Friday. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow saying the 15% tariffs due to be imposed on China in December could be withdrawn if negotiations go well. And China could be making more big buys of U.S. ag soon. Reuters reporting China has issued a 10 million ton tariff-free quota to import soybeans from the U.S. It reports the quota was offered to state-owned crushers, privately owned crushers, and major international soybean crushers. It comes after President Trump said China had agreed to buy up to $50 billion worth of U.S. farm products after reaching that Phase 1 trade agreement. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has won a second term in Canada's national elections. And while Trudeau's Liberal Party took the most seats in the Parliament, it lost the overall popular vote to the Conservative Party. That means the Liberal Party will have to rely on an opposition party to pass legislation. A Canadian dairy group telling me they believe the trilateral trade deal between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada will be passed now, especially since Prime Minister Trudeau was there from the beginning of the talks, even though the Canadian dairy farmers don't especially agree with USMCA.
Unfortunately, yes. I don't think that the government is going to change their mind after having signed on the dotted line.
Skipper says Canadian dairy farmers are upset. They feel as if Trudeau doesn't defend supply management the way the Canadian dairy industry operates, giving away Canada's market access. Oh, and by the way, some Canadians call the USMCA deal CUSMA, putting Canada first in the title.
The I-80 Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Hamburg, Iowa. It's a river town located in the southwest corner of the state, and it is a place which has seen a lot of flooding after levees breached along the Missouri River earlier in the year. I was able to check out the situation on the ground for this week's I-80 Harvest Tour. Combines run behind in Sidney, Iowa, as Jeff Jorgensen remains prompt, getting back to harvest after a short rain delay.
We got to get started. All of a sudden it'll be the 1st of November before we know it.
He hasn't been at harvest too long. His early planted crop on higher ground so far raking in surprisingly good yields.
I think our yields are going to be pretty strong. I mean, pretty solid for area. I think we'll get close to our APHs on a lot of it. We did have a fair amount of prevent plant that we had this year.
This year has been tough for farmers in the southwest corner of the state. Jorgensen running machinery roughly 10 miles north of Hamburg, Iowa, a town submerged back in March with levees breached along the Missouri River. The town still shows scars from spring as sandbags wait on the streets. Road construction stands nearby and land sits covered by water.
A lot of these guys are ready to go to work and get their ground put back in condition, start farming. But there's some of it they haven't been able to do anything with yet.
Sorry about the smell.
Some of Mike Waltemath's ground is in Hamburg, right where the breach occurred.
We've been able to get a little bit of tillage done in, being a farmer, we want to get out and tend our fields, and get, the weeds down, and there's some places we can't get to.
His life changed because of it. He moved his family out of the river bottoms into Missouri. While he waits to get in the ground he can't, Waltemath knows some ground won't be planted in 2020, if ever.
Some of it probably will never be farmed again. There'll be some of it that has been, damaged beyond repair. And we had some pasture that will never be repaired, never be used again as pasture or farm ground.
Concerns from a lifeless fall, with farmers stressed if wet weather arrives again.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of talk of what it was in a year ago, and it looks real familiar. There's wet fields, and you don't want to rut things, and being able to get trucks in and out of fields.
Yet the crop there now stands at attention, ready for harvest when the weather sees fit. And due to late planting, harvest is still lagging behind. Looking at new crop progress numbers from USDA, 30% of the corn crop is now harvested. Usually we're at 47%. Only 55% is rated good to excellent, whereas last year it was 68%. As for soybeans, we stand at 46% harvested compared to the usual amount of 64%. 54% of the crop is rated good to excellent compared to 66% last year. And in other portions of the country, the combines are continuing to roll. Here's meteorologist Cindy Clausen with today's crop comments.
Well, it can be pretty exciting when those big machines start to roll. Check out more family farms in Tipton, Indiana, and this little guy making sure things are rolling right along. One great smile for a sunny day for harvesting. I'll have your national forecast coming right up. Betsy?
Thanks, Cindy. Coming up, we dive into the wheat market and why some producers aren't as excited to plant it this year. And later, efforts to save a rare breed by taking it to the butcher.
Hey y'all, Justin Moore here. Get ready to kick up some dust with the Roxor Dirt Roads and a Country Show sweepstakes. Enter now for a chance to win a customized off-road Roxor and 2 VIP tickets to one of my upcoming concerts. Visit roxoroffroad.com/Justin Moore.
The news that China could soon be buying even more U.S. soybeans helped push bean futures higher. Here's more on where we're starting things out this Wednesday morning from the CME.
Well, we started off with a lot of strength here today, especially in soybeans, and that was coming from news overnight that China has approved another 10 million metric tons of soybeans to be purchased from the U.S. from state-owned grain buyers, or soybean buyers, in particular soybean crushers, that would be tariff and duty-free. So they're allowed to do that. Now, that sent the soybeans back up to recent highs. However, we weren't able to hold on to that because we haven't seen any follow-up sales coming from China. We know that recently, in the last 2 days, they've bought from both Brazil and Argentina. And we also know that our dollar has gotten a little bit stronger in the last 24 hours, mainly due to Brexit dealings. So that has us wondering if, even though they're allowed to buy another 10 million metric tons tariff and duty-free, are we still competitive in the market? Will they still come buy from us? So until we see that, we're going to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. We'll see what happens. Yesterday and today, this is a big proving ground because we've not been able to break out to the upside. Now we're kind of trying to test the low end of this range to see if we can break out here. If we do, correction. If we don't, back up and over the highs most likely. So keep a very close eye on it. Keep a close eye on weather. Again, this is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
With so many variables right now, where does that leave the wheat crop? Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan has some analysis trackside at the Kansas City Speedway.
Here now with Dan O'Brien of Kansas State University. And let's dig into wheat, Dan. I mean, last year we know it was a nightmare to get that wheat crop planted. Saw farmers that never got it in. This year, that was because of wetness. This year, different story, kind of dry out in the west. How do you think we're setting ourselves up for this year's winter wheat crop?
For the seeded winter wheat crop, we're dry, and that those dry areas have been expanding. So the challenge of that is that, gosh, when it's dry, we wonder about our yield prospects. But if we can grow a crop and under tougher conditions, we have higher protein. So that we're balancing that back and forth.
Yeah, so protein premiums, let's get into that. Look at the situation at hand today. Will we see some protein premiums come into play?
Likely, you know, there's some cutback. Is it 10, is it 15% in the hard red spring wheat crop? And what's left out in the field of questionable quality. They had large stocks coming into that, so we won't see an immediate jump up in protein premiums probably because of that. But in the longer run, we'll with our lower protein hard red winter wheat crop, very likely we'll see what we do have out of hard red spring being rewarded pretty well if it has good protein.
Well, I mean, that has to make it a little easier. I heard from a lot of producers this year that said, I just can't get excited to plant wheat right now.
That's right. Nobody is saying, I haven't heard anything out in the country that says that they are not going to plant wheat, but it's more of a moderate thing at this time. Again, we have lots of bushels, but so-so prices, you know, $4 prices out in western Kansas and a little bit better elsewhere. So, and our break-evens are you know, about 10-15% higher than that.
Dan, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyne.
We need to take a quick break and then we'll have a check of weather right here on Ag Day.
To help achieve your personal best yield, try Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, it sounds like it's going to become a little bit colder in the upper Midwest.
Yeah, you know, they've had some chilly air already, and yeah, we're going to see another couple really chilly days across those areas, especially the northern plains and Minnesota, Wisconsin. Yeah, we're going to see some pretty chilly air. We'll have a couple of main features to watch today. We're still seeing some rain in the northeastern United States and some wraparound moisture bringing some rain and, yes, even some snow into parts of the upper Great Lakes and into the upper Midwest. Now, we're also looking at this low pressure system, a couple of lows that are going to be sinking to the south and picking up more moisture as they do. All right, let's watch what happens. And we see that rain in the northeast. Not a lot happening just yet with the moisture in the upper Midwest with this low pressure system. Now, we're going to start to see a little bit more activity, especially in the Rockies. And as we get into Wednesday night, we're really going to see that moisture picking up. Look at what happens here as you get into Colorado and the northeastern part of New Mexico, where that snow really starts to expand. So we're going to be looking at a lot of areas in that 4 to 8 inch range and even higher in some spots. Heading through our Thursday, that low pressure moves to the east, and notice how we pick up a lot more moisture along this cold front. So that's going to be bringing some potentially heavier rain from areas in Missouri down through Oklahoma and into Texas as well, while we start to really dry out with high pressure dominating in the west. Now, as we look at the precipitation, this is the past 24 hours, and you can see how wet it's been in the eastern part of the country with that cold front that's been moving its way through, and of course the wraparound moisture on the back side of that low. The next 24 hours will focus on the northeast, and then eventually we really start to pick up more moisture with that cold front in parts of the southern plains and into the Missouri Valley. All right, now as we look at snowfall, yeah, we've had some of those higher elevations in parts of the Northwest, but we're really going to add to that as that low moves to the south, especially over into Colorado and into the northern parts of New Mexico. You can see tis the season, I should say, especially in those higher elevations. Temperatures still remain cool in the north central United States, highs only in the 40s, maybe not even making it that way in some spots right along the Canadian border. We're still in the 80s though as you head down to the south. Now as we head through tonight, temperatures get pretty chilly down into the 20s in spots in the north central United States. Even some 30s down on the over towards Virginia, 30s and 40s in kind of the northeast United States as that cold air really sets in. And then tomorrow, highs only in the 30s here in the upper Midwest into the northern plains, northern high plains, the Rockies. You can see how cold those temperatures are. Where the warmer temperatures reside is in the southeast. Quick check of the jet stream, that trough moving off to the northeast. We're going to see a kind of a deeper trough moving through the south. Ridge builds in briefly to the west, but notice another trough with some pretty cold air for the early to middle part of next week for the north central United States. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Black Forest, Colorado, rain changing to snow today with a high of 52 degrees. Baxter, Minnesota, mostly cloudy and cold with a high of only 39 degrees. And Butner, North Carolina, sunny and cooler with a high of 66.
Still ahead, is the situation with African swine fever getting any better? We have an update and what it means for the American pork industry next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
The problem with African swine fever has been growing for over a year now, and experts say it's not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. Arlen Suderman is a chief commodities economist at INTL FC Stone. He says it will be another 4 to 6 years before China will be able to rebuild its herd. And he says that's making assumptions about when and if they will be able to get an effective vaccine. Last spring's explosion of prices at the wholesale level were mostly absorbed by retailers because they didn't believe it would be a long-term problem. Many producers here thought markets would start opening up to China to meet demand.
Well, I think we're generally a little disappointed that pork sales to China haven't been as great as we thought they would be by now, but things are looking up. Last week was, for the week actually ending October 3rd, they had over 18,000 metric tons of pork that were going to be shipped to China yet this year, and a commitment of over 123,000 for next year. But as we know, sometimes those shipments get canceled. But again, it's a positive step forward for the pork industry, and we hope this trend continues.
And as pork prices surge across China due to shortages because of ASF, more rural communities are putting dog and rabbit meat back on the menu. The South China Morning Post reporting the price of lean pork is around $10 per kilogram. That's more than double a year ago. Consumers are reluctant to buy pork at that price, so supermarkets are promoting rabbit. The prices for rabbit are nearly $2 cheaper. The Post goes on to say that a move to more dog meat is just one of the side effects of the massive pork shortage. Experts say the problem is not going away anytime soon. It's expected pork prices will rise further as stock continues to decline. Still ahead, efforts to save a rare breed of cattle. How farmers are working with a butcher of all people to make it happen next.
Hey y'all, Justin Moore here. Get ready to kick up some dust with the Roxor Dirt Roads and a Country Show sweepstakes. Enter now for a chance to win a customized off-road Roxor and 2 VIP tickets to one of my upcoming concerts. Visit roxoroffroad.com/Justin Moore.
In their native UK, British white cattle are considered a minority breed. Until recently in Australia, they were on the brink of extinction. Now a farming couple, along with a butcher, are trying to save the animals. Although British cattle were introduced to Australia 60 years ago, the meat has only recently been made available to consumers. It's estimated there are fewer than 750 British white female cattle left in the country. So it's hoped if a market for the beef can be built, it may shore up the breed's future in the country. In Melbourne, specialist butchers are making the most of the opportunity by trying to establish direct links from the farmer to the consumer.
this sort of grew a passion for me to think about, then maybe we should be looking at preserving a rare breed, and by eating a rare breed, we can do that as well.
We want to know that the farmers aren't just taking from the land. These guys really put a lot of effort into leaving the land in a better state than when they left.
The butcher says the meat from the British white cattle is very tender and has nice marbling that lends to the flavor. It's estimated the breed dates back to the 17th century. Interesting. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by the Milk Business Conference. Don't miss this dairy business-focused event November 11th and 12th, 2019 in Las Vegas. Register